but we can make it in the society.
What are their actual chances of getting to stay? And as the Oscars approach, the offbeat career of Ryan Gosling.
City of stars.
Plus, a rival director, Denis Villeneuve, on his next big challenge.
Blade Runner is a different kind of pressure. It's an artistic pressure.
He came, he saw, he railed. President Donald Trump addressed the conservative faithful today with his rhetorical guns ablazing. Speaking at the annual Conservative Political Action Conference, Trump delivered a greatest hits package of attacks on one of his regular punching bags, the media. But as Tom Perry reports, as soon as the event was over, things got very quiet, at least for some.
Our president, Donald Trump.
The campaign is long over, but Donald Trump's message is still much the same. The U.S. president today taking pot shots at one of his favorite targets.
And I want you all to know that we are fighting the fake news. It's fake, phony, fake.
Trump dragged out many of his now familiar attacks on mainstream media, and he sharpened them even further, calling out reporters who use anonymous sources to dig up dirt on his administration.
I'm against the people that make up stories and make up sources. They shouldn't be allowed to use sources unless they use somebody's name.
Without anonymous sources, Trump says stories would dry up, which is, of course, exactly what he wants. Today, the White House turned Trump's verbal attacks into action. CNN, the New York Times, the LA Times, and others were barred from an informal White House briefing. Outlets more sympathetic to the administration were allowed in.
This is clearly President Trump punishing news organizations for providing basic accountability.
In the wake of Trump's inflammatory speech, the move sparked fury among journalists. The New York Times called it unprecedented and issued a statement reminding the administration free media access to a transparent government is obviously of crucial national interest.
The media is most certainly not the enemy of the American people. The media is critical to a vibrant democracy, and we show that by showing up for work every day and covering the White House and doing our jobs.
The White House today denied there was any plan to lock reporters out. They say they simply decided not to do an on-camera news conference, and that media outlets invited to the informal briefing represent a wide range of views. When he was running for president, Donald Trump was never shy about barring media from his campaign events if he felt they were being unfair to him. Back in December, Trump's press secretary, Sean Spicer, was asked whether that might happen at the White House. At the time, Spicer said the administration would respect the press. That, he said, was the difference between a democracy and a dictatorship. Tom Perry, CBC News, Washington.
Two asylum seekers who nearly died walking across the U.S.-Canada border on Christmas Eve are now out of hospital. Next stop, an all-important refugee hearing, something each man paid a devastating price to get, a loss that will always be with them, whether this country grants them a home or sends them away. Cameron McIntosh has the story.
Okay, watch, step up. Okay,
home, at least for now. For Seydou Mohammed and Razakiel, this is the first real glimpse at the Canadian life they're seeking.
So you're going to be living upstairs on the second floor.
And their new reality of living with disability.
We are very happy now because we desperate want to be independent because we know what happened to us.
Both men fled Ghana and traveled to the U.S. On Christmas Eve, they walked across the border here near Emerson, Manitoba, spending hours in deep snow and extreme cold. Suffering such severe frostbite, doctors amputated all of their fingers.
We lose our fingers, but we can make it in the society.
Their case was one of the first to draw attention to the large numbers of asylum seekers who are crossing the border illegally. International law, however, allows them to claim refugee status. Both say their lives are in danger. Mohammed for reasons of his sexual orientation.
I will be murdered or go to jail when I go back home.
For Yael, it's political reasons he's waiting to explain in his refugee hearing.
Some people want to kill me.
Last year, only 43% of claimants from Ghana got refugee status. As they wait for their hearings, they're learning to live independently. Basics like eating, cooking, using the bathroom.
So you'll be able to shower by yourself. You won't.
Care that's being provided by a Christian resettlement agency.
Okay. That's my job, is to make people gain the confidence and the skills and heal as they need to with the appropriate therapy, of course, and then become independent.
Their lives forever changed. Both say they think often of that night.
If we know that the cold will gonna be that cold, we'll wait for the cold to go away.
I know I lost my fingers, but is it better for me to go back and be killed or going to jail?
Their futures here now ride on one interview and a decision by a single panel member of the Canadian Refugee and Immigration Board next month. Cameron McIntosh, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Some Vancouver Canucks won't be lacing up their skates tomorrow night. That's because they're in quarantine over fears a contagious but preventable disease is spreading. And as Christine Barak explains, it's spread well beyond the rink.
The mumps are back at play in the NHL, sidelining 5 players on the Vancouver Canucks.
So the symptoms in the players have ranged from classic mumps symptoms to much milder ones.
The next couple of weeks might be really interesting, but we'll be real cautious and make sure that if something pops up, guys are going to tell the doctors.
In 2014, few could forget this face. Sidney Crosby joined a list of 14 players on 5 teams hit by an outbreak of the viral infection.
For me, I think it's certainly cause for concern. Whenever we see a vaccine-preventable disease, one case is more than we'd like to see.
Remember that little yellow card? With mumps on the rise, doctors say you may want to check it.
There's a certain age group who only had 1 dose of the MMR vaccine based on when they were born.
Between 1970 and 1994, Canadians received only 1 shot of the vaccine that protects against measles, mumps, and rubella. Those born later received 2, offering nearly 90% protection. Mumps cases have been declining over the last decade. In 2015, there were just 65. But in Manitoba, more than 160 patients have fallen ill with mumps in the last 6 months alone. Cases are also up in Ontario. And forget the NHL. Mumps have hit this team in Medicine Hat, Alberta.
Woke up in the middle of the night, felt swollen around my neck here.
Most end up in bed with swollen cheeks and a fever, but in rare cases, mumps can be far more serious.
Having swelling of the testicles or swelling of the ovaries. It can also be associated with deafness, meningitis.
Doctors say if you're between 18 and 35, make sure you've had your 2nd shot of the vaccine. American health officials are now considering whether Americans should get a 3rd dose because mumps cases are at a 10-year high. Christine Barak, CBC News, Toronto.
Coming up, Canadian Oscar contenders make a connection.
Brian was the best ally I could ever dream of.
Plus, more portraits of Black women handing down valuable lessons.
It makes me feel that I could die at any moment and know that my purpose was fulfilled.
When Alex Radita died back in 2013, he weighed about as much as a toddler, but he was 15 years old. His body covered in ulcers and wounds, and he was living with his parents. Today, both of them were found guilty of first-degree murder, the end of a sickening case of a boy's shocking life. The CBC's Carolyn Dunn has that story.
This was Alex Radita's last birthday. He was 15 years old. 4 months later, Alex was dead. Justice Karen Horner ruled Emil and Radhika Radita knew Alex was diabetic, withheld insulin, and intentionally isolated him so that no one could intervene. In sentencing the couple to life in prison with no chance of parole for 25 years, Horner told the Raditas, "Your actions are beyond comprehension."
This does feel like justice for Alex.
But Crown Prosecutor Susan Pepper hopes the case changes the system that failed him.
If change could occur from this, that would be a really fitting legacy for Alex.
In his short life, Alex Radita fell through many cracks in the system, beginning when he was 5 years old and brought to hospital in BC near death from untreated diabetes. BC Social Services removed him from the Radita's care. With medical treatment, he thrived in foster care. But against the pleas of social workers, a BC judge returned Alex to the Raditas less than a year later. Patricia McDonald was Alex's social worker at the time. She is still haunted by that judge's decision and Alex's death.
Alex was a very brave and a very
smart little man, and he would have wanted for his life to have had meaning.
By 2008, the Reditas had stopped taking Alex to medical appointments in BC. The following year, they moved to Alberta. BC's Child and Family Development Department knew that, but acknowledges it didn't share any information with its Alberta counterpart. Alex was registered to attend online school in Alberta, but never did. Officials admit no one followed up. Alberta Education says it's now actively assessing how to improve student attendance and reporting. Alberta and BC have updated their sharing protocols, but information is still only shared if a file is open. Alex Redita's former social worker is asking for a public warning system to report kids in danger and wants it to be called an Alex Alert. Carolyn Dunn, CBC News, Calgary.
Bill Cosby won an important preliminary court decision today ahead of an upcoming criminal trial. A Canadian woman alleges Cosby drugged and assaulted her in 2004. Prosecutors had hoped to call 13 other accusers as witnesses, but today a judge said they could only call one. The trial is set to begin in June. Public health officials in Toronto are concerned a solution to one disease is leading to a rise of several others. Truvada is seen as a revolutionary drug in the prevention of HIV, but it may be providing a false sense of security. The CBC's Philippe de Montigny explains.
Stephen Lowe and his longtime partner take a little blue pill every morning. Pre-exposure prophylaxis, or PrEP, allows them to have sex with other men without the fear of contracting HIV.
They could think they're negative but not be, or they could, be positive. Now the power's all in my hands with this pill.
Approved by Health Canada a year ago, PrEP is 99% effective when taken daily, but it doesn't ward off other sexually transmitted infections.
A lot of people attempt to use it as some sort of cure-all, and it's not quite that.
Yet, a number of PrEP users on apps like Scruff or Grindr say they actively look for bareback or unprotected sex. But it's not just in Toronto. Big cities like Montreal, San Francisco, and New York also see the trend. Toronto Public Health worries the drug provides a false sense of invincibility for some users.
Because they may not be using condoms. Once the risk of HIV is eliminated, people may be less likely to use condoms.
Toronto Public Health data obtained and analyzed by CBC News reveal an upward trend in STIs like syphilis, gonorrhea, and chlamydia when comparing the period following PrEP's approval in 2016 to the same period in 2013. And last year, 9 out of 10 syphilis cases reported involved men who have sex with men. But pharmacist Michael Fannis says PrEP isn't to blame, as patients who take it are required to test for HIV and other STIs every 3 months.
And we know that if you test more frequently, you'll have more positive test results.
He says the frequent checkups could actually reduce the spread of STIs in the long run, as they're detected and treated more quickly among the highest risk patients. But PrEP is still inaccessible for many Canadians. It costs about $1,000 a month, and Quebec's provincial drug plan is the only one in Canada that covers it. Some Ontarians like Fannis are calling on the government to step up.
The next step is to sit down. If it's seen as effective and approved, then we sit down with the drug company and negotiate the price, which can take a few weeks or it can take a few months.
But the minister hasn't even started that negotiation process, even though the Pan-Canadian Drug Review Committee recommended nearly 7 months ago that provinces foot the bill for PrEP. Philippe de Montigny, CBC News, Toronto.
Well, if you've been feeling a pinch on your wallet, you're not alone. Canada has seen a sharp increase in the cost of living. According to Statistics Canada, the inflation rate jumped 2.1% from last January. Two major contributors were the cost of shelter and transportation. No surprise there, as gas prices saw the largest hike since 2011. One thing that was cheaper, Canadians paid less for food than last year. Well, Canadians looking for leaner options at fast food restaurants might opt for a grilled chicken sandwich, and Subway is a recognized brand offering just that. But as a marketplace investigation reveals, there may be more in that chicken than meets the eye and less when it comes to actual chicken. Charles Iagro reports.
Can I have one of those grilled chicken sandwiches, please? They're a staple on fast food menus from coast to coast to coast. Is it 100% chicken? Yes. Grilled chicken sandwiches, marketed as a leaner, lighter option. and Canadians are buying what the big brands are selling. What do you think's in your fast food grilled chicken?
Protein, good stuff.
Chicken.
Yeah, chicken. To be sure Canadians are getting what they think they're getting, Marketplace turned to science, sending 6 popular sandwiches for DNA testing.
Well, if it's a whole piece of chicken, we should be getting chicken DNA back and not a whole lot of plant DNA.
Lab technician Matt Harnden says DNA can provide a ratio of chicken and plant DNA, a good indicator of how much chicken meat is actually in the chicken. Did any of our samples come back 100% chicken DNA?
Almost all of them did, except from Subway.
According to that test, Subway's chicken strips less than half chicken DNA. Their oven roasted chicken only slightly higher than 50% chicken DNA. The rest mostly soy. That came as a big surprise to this seasoned technician.
Expected to maybe see some filler, but not as much of that DNA as we saw.
That's right, could be just half chicken, but still sold as chicken in Canada.
These franchisors understand exactly what's in their products, and they're taking those and they're marketing them in a sense that doesn't fully disclose that you're buying a oven-roasted soy sandwich.
Part of the problem, says this food lawyer, when it comes to ready-to-eat sandwiches like the ones Marketplace tested, it's complicated.
There's so much variance in what a chicken sandwich can be. It's difficult for a CFIA inspector to walk into a restaurant and figure out on their own what's up, is it compliant?
Given our findings, we repeatedly asked Subway for an on-camera interview, but they declined, saying they disagree with our test results, but they're looking into it with their supplier to make sure their chicken meets their standards. Charles Ciagro, CBC News, Toronto.
U.S. President Donald Trump's recent crackdown against illegal immigrants is having an unintended consequence. More and more churches are stepping in to offer shelters to those facing deportation. Stephen D'Souza has more on how New York houses of worship are becoming houses of protection.
Just off Washington Square Park in New York, Judson Memorial Church has a long history of providing refuge for those fleeing deportation. But Reverend Donna Scopper says she's never seen so many people reaching out for help.
We're doing about 10 times as much business as we were before the election.
Historically, churches have provided sanctuary for illegal immigrants. At least a dozen in New York have recently harbored someone. Now they're mobilizing to do more, like offering training seminars to teach people what to do if approached by an immigration enforcement officer.
Spiritual support, moral support, legal support, financial support, physical support if they need it.
New York is home to an estimated 1.2 million illegal immigrants, the largest concentration in the country, who are now living in fear. There are stories of families keeping children out of school and people not reporting to work, all afraid that enforcement teams could swoop in at any moment. Rumors abound of agents stopping trains and locking people in restaurants to aggressively look for illegals. But in reality, just more than 40 people have been arrested in the New York area. Nearly all of those had criminal records.
We are getting the bad ones out. These are bad dudes.
While the president continued his tough talk on illegal immigrants, his head of Homeland Security tried to strike a more reassuring tone.
Let me be very, very clear. There will be no mass deportations.
Still, aggressive enforcement guidelines introduced by Homeland Security this week has pastors like Andrew Stellick gearing up for a fight.
Protecting those most vulnerable, I feel that the church is called to do.
There's talk of rapid response teams ready to protest and offer help should the raids come.
We don't really know what is going to happen exactly, and no one really knows. So we are trying to quickly react and be flexible to whatever is happening.
Despite the sense of panic, immigration officials do have a policy of avoiding sensitive areas like schools, churches, and hospitals, except in special circumstances like a threat to national security. When contacted by the CBC today, officials tell us that policy hasn't changed. Stephen D'Souza, CBC News, New York.
Straight ahead, Canada's top Oscar hopefuls, Ryan Gosling and director Denis Villeneuve.
Hi there, Facebook Live fans from coast to coast to coast. Peter Mansbridge here with Ian Hannamansing. We're in, you guessed it, beautiful Vancouver. Spectacular backdrop for our little chat here tonight. We want to prepare you for what's coming up after the National, which you're watching on Facebook Live. Don't switch off. Stay on Facebook Live because we're going to do a special digital town hall here in Vancouver. About our journalism. We've got people here in the audience, but we've got you connected, whether it's Facebook Live or Periscope or YouTube, for your questions about a particular area of our journalism. Tonight we want to focus on investigative journalism. And Ian, this is a great place to be talking about investigative journalism. CBC Vancouver and CBC British Columbia do great work here.
Yeah, there's a team back in the newsroom, and that is their focus, and so many stories. But as we sit here, Peter, and we look at the spectacular backdrop, I can't help but think about what's happening as we speak about 6 blocks this way, eastward, the downtown east side. It is extraordinary to just walk through there and see the scourge of drug addiction. It's affected that neighborhood for as long as I've been here. In the late 90s, there was heroin that was so pure, dozens of people were dying per month of overdoses, but now you add fentanyl to the equation. It's almost an exponential increase in the number of overdose deaths. Natalie Clancy's done a lot of good work on that, and she'll be part of our group tonight.
She sure will be, and you're right, in terms of the increase in deaths, hundreds last year as a result of the fentanyl crisis. So Natalie is on our panel tonight on investigative journalism. So is Adrian Arsenault, who you know has done lots of work overseas. Diana Swain, who's our senior investigative reporter. Ian will be on. And Connie Walker, who has done award-winning work on the issue of murdered and missing Indigenous women and children. So it's quite a panel, but it will be successful based on your questions. So we want to hear from you, any thoughts you may have about investigative journalism and how it fits in the CBC. We're going to be doing this in different parts of the country, looking at other journalism issues as well and how they affect the CBC. So this is the first one, so we're really interested to see how you ask along in terms of your questions, whether those who are here in the audience or those who are plugging in via social means over the next little while.
This is the day they arrived.
The object touched down 40 minutes ago.
Mama, what's going to happen?
A mysterious spaceship lands and mankind teeters on the verge of a global war. It's a larger-than-life premise, but Denis Villeneuve's arrival clearly struck a chord with the critics. This Sunday, it could earn him the Oscar for Best Direction, just one of the film's many nominations. Villeneuve is one of 2 Canadian contenders we want to highlight for you tonight. Eli Glasner takes us from the director's beginnings to the heights he's going to next.
Lights, camera, red carpet. This is the Oscar luncheon where the nominees have a chance to meet and mingle. And there, wedged between Denzel Washington and Emma Stone, is Montreal's Denis Villeneuve. But before he was whisked away to lunch, Villeneuve sat down to chat about how he got here and where he's going next. What brought Villeneuve to the Oscars is Arrival.
Dr. Banks? Hey, what are you doing?
Yeah,
a film about alien contact featuring a determined interpreter and strange new visitors.
You need to see me.
Dr. Banks, she's walking toward the screen.
Academy Award voters don't usually fall for sci-fi, but Villeneuve's film is about more than little green men. Arrival pulses with humanity, telling the tale of an interpreter exploring her own emotional boundaries.
Now that's a proper introduction.
Long before he was bringing this multi-million-dollar adventure to life,
Okay.
Denis Villeneuve was a young boy growing up in Gentilly, a small village on the St. Lawrence River. Fed on a diet of sci-fi comic books and graphic novels, and movies such as Stanley Kubrick's 2001, A Space Odyssey, Villeneuve would escape into his imagination.
I always loved storytelling, and as a child, I was like, that was my favorite part of my existence, was that bubble of when I was reading and flying all.
Bonjour, mon nom c'est Denis Villeneuve.
Denis Villeneuve.
He considered a career in science, but the urge to tell stories was stronger. His first breakthrough was on a Radio-Canada reality show where filmmakers competed against each other.
Hey man, what's happening?
Do you feel panic?
Je ne sais pas, je ne sais plus, je suis fatigué, j'ai plus rien à perdre.
Interesting.
Villeneuve soon set himself apart as a director drawn to bold, emotional tales. With his 2009 film Polytechnique, he took on the horrific events of the Montreal Massacre, capturing moments of beauty, courage, and fear.
Salut Simon, c'est moi. Je suis dans le village de maman, puis j'aimerais ça que tu sois là.
Next, Villeneuve shifted his focus to the Middle East for Incendie, a story set in a world of shifting borders and cycles of violence. Nominated in the Best Foreign Language category, Incendie brought Villeneuve to the 2011 Oscars for the first time, and Hollywood took notice. He knew he had bigger stories to tell. Now he had the chance.
Honestly, I knew that in order to evolve, I will need to go out of home.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't mean to leave. Doesn't mean that I will not go back make movies in Quebec, but just to experience things outside, I felt was very healthy for me.
Where are those girls?
Villeneuve applied his discerning eye to 2013's Prisoners, a kidnapping drama about a father pushed to extremes.
You want to be a part of this?
Do we get an opportunity of the men responsible for today?
The men who are really responsible for today.
The grisly thriller led to an offer to direct 2015's Sicario, a story set in the gray zone of the U.S.-Mexico drug war.
Where do you work for now?
Well, I go where I'm sent.
The film featured another Villeneuve signature, a strong female character, Emily Blunt as the determined FBI agent. Studio executives wanted to replace her with a man, but Villeneuve, who was raised by strong women, has always been drawn to their stories.
There's something about the position of women in society, how their access to power. It's something that deeply touched me since a long time, and so I am always moved and attracted by screenplay that portrait women evolving in our world today.
This is the day they arrived.
Women were central to the mother-daughter story of his next film, Arrival.
What's going to happen?
I don't know.
And audiences responded, making the cerebral slice of sci-fi the biggest film of Villeneuve's career. Juggling all the attention around Arrival's Oscar race would be enough for any director, but Villeneuve is already moving forward. Right now, he's putting the finishing touches on Blade Runner 2049.
I was good at it.
This isn't just any film. It's the sequel to one of the most influential science fiction films of our time.
Things were simpler then.
When Blade Runner premiered in 1982, it changed the way we envisioned the future. Blade Runner took us into a world where capitalism and cyborgs blurred our ideas around identity. The perfect subject for Villeneuve, but one with a wide margin for failure.
Blade Runner is a different kind of pressure. It's an artistic pressure. I'm not in the, but I'm just saying that I'm used to act and to create movies under pressure, and I love to take risks.
Part of what helped Villeneuve manage the pressure was an actor he calls his new muse, Canadian Ryan Gosling.
And Ryan was the best ally I could ever dream of. Someone that was like a strong spirit, very inspired. He's someone that is a brilliant human being. He's a brilliant actor, but he's also a very intelligent, very impressively clever guy, and that has a strong ideas about storytelling. He's a very strong storyteller. And he deeply helped me to be able to go through that journey from a creative point of view.
He helped you?
And yeah, creatively a lot. And from a human point of view also.
Just an alternative to...
As Villeneuve rushes to prepare Blade Runner for an October opening, he's already announced his next film, a dream project remaking the 1984 dystopian epic Dune. It's the kind of opportunity that little boy from Gentilly could only have dreamt of. An amazing but exhausting run for this director and father.
And you have a life outside this, right? Three kids
yes,
and a wife.
Yes. The center of the center of my life, my family. Yes.
So is there a price for this incredible success that you've had?
But listen, it's like the kids are older now. But yes, it's a price. It's that's the only thing I don't like about cinema. Is how it can drag me away from my family. That's the thing that, and I'm trying to find an equilibrium.
What keeps Villeneuve pushing himself is his belief in the power of cinema. What's remarkable is after all that he's accomplished, he's still not satisfied.
I don't think I succeed yet, but I hope to make movies that will go through time, that will...
You don't think you've succeeded yet?
But I don't know that. I will know. You don't know that. You know, you will know in 20 years if what I've done was meaningful enough. I mean, it's like, and it's very pretentious and arrogant to think like that. But I think that at the end of the day, that's the wish of everyone who's doing artistic work, is to try to make something that will go through time, that will be meaningful in years to come.
There's something about Canadians in Los Angeles.
Here at an event for Canadian Oscar nominees sharing the spotlight with legendary director Norman Jewison, Denis Villeneuve has arrived. But it seems this filmmaker is just getting started. Eli Glasner, CBC News, Los Angeles.
Well, you heard Villeneuve talking about Ryan Gosling. He's also up for an Oscar, Best Actor, no less, for the singing, dancing, struggling jazz man in La La Land. But Gosling's rise from child star to A-lister meant some pretty unorthodox career moves. Deanna Sumanak-Johnson tells us about that.
City of stars, are you shining just for me?
Behind the cool persona Ryan Gosling projects on screen and off is a careful career strategy that stretches back 2 decades.
He has like a path in mind and he's sticking to it, and I think that's kind of admirable.
Damn. Gosling's first career feat, smoothly transitioning from the child performer on Disney's Mickey Mouse Club to a serious dramatic actor. Rob Stewart directed Gosling in the 1990s teen show Breaker High.
He was doing what seemed like a very effortless comedic role, but I could see all the subtle little technical things he had to do to achieve that level of looking effortless. And he was 16 years old. I remember telling his mom he was going to be bigger than Jimmy Stewart.
Yes, I agree.
He's not the only one to see Gosling's connection to old Hollywood.
First, I watched them just to kill time, but then I couldn't take my eyes off them, just as you won't be able to.
But I just think, again...
Actor and acting teacher Salvatore Antonio says Gosling's second act was even more impressive, not allowing himself to get pigeonholed as a romantic lead after his success in The Notebook.
After having a breakout hit, like The Notebook, for example, which kind of put him on the map, instead of just getting caught up in doing a whole bunch of stuff because it is coming your way, he's being selective.
Instead, Gosling's post-Notebook choices were notably unromantic. Playing an addicted high school teacher in Half Nelson.
How are you? Same old, same old. Well, I feel good today. Anyone else feel good?
A man in love with a blow-up sex doll in Lars and the Real Girl.
You're not gonna go to work today, Gus? I don't feel good. Well, Bianca could help you, you know, she has nurses training.
One of the reasons the audience was able to buy him in such quirky and diverse roles, people don't know as much about his personal life as they do about other stars. Once again, he took a page out of old Hollywood's rule book.
For example, he won't even say Eva Mendes's name. He refers to her as his partner, or
my girl,
my lady, right? So it's kind of like it's a coy little I know you know, but we're not going to talk about that because that's not what this interview is about.
You're holding on to the past.
But how will Gosling fare now that his projects involve bigger budgets and more scrutiny? This senior culture writer for BuzzFeed News says if Gosling's career so far is any indication, he will survive.
He had his directorial debut at Cannes, and people kind of walked out and there was some booing. But I think you can bounce back from that if you've got this, like I said, a well of goodwill that's kind of just, you can dip into it and kind of say, but remember how much you loved me in that other thing, and people will come back.
A well of goodwill for a Canadian whose relaxed persona conceals a savvy career planner with that old Hollywood feel. Deanna Sumanag-Johnson, CBC News, Toronto.
Last night we brought you a story that's got plenty of positive reaction. Now stay tuned for part 2.
I want them to see that, go for it. Don't overthink it. Just go for it.
Black women share hard-earned skills with a new generation. Plus, a Canadian discount chain thrives in a tough industry. Well, time to look at the day's business numbers. The TSX plunged 247 points, but there wasn't much change to the dollar. In New York, the Dow closed with another record high, gaining 11 points. Oil, though, dropped 46 cents a barrel.
CBC News Magazine. Canadian scientists and their counterparts on the Soviet side of the North Pole have found out that the Arctic ice pack is slowly melting. The ocean is warming up. Its coat of ice is now only about 60% as thick as it was at the turn of the century.
Polar ice will melt, and by the end of the century, this will bring floods to low-lying coastal areas. Inland, there'll be drought, and in other places, an increase in storms. Some crops could be devastated. But looking at the brighter side of things, at least our great-grandchildren should have warmer winters.
Just a sample of the broad spectrum of opinion on the changes taking place in our atmosphere.
Cataclysmic, not a trivial matter, and not one to be taken lightly.
The greenhouse effect will wreak total havoc on the natural world.
All of them are burning fossil fuels. All of them are adding carbon dioxide to the atmosphere. But if I put in too much carbon dioxide, in effect, what I'm doing is putting a dome over the entire world. Temperature begins to rise because it's being trapped, the greenhouse effect. And we can actually see it here on the thermometer just from these ordinary studio lights.
Compounding the problem has been the systematic depletion of the world's forests. Trees need carbon dioxide for photosynthesis. As the number of trees diminish worldwide, more carbon dioxide is left to build up in the atmosphere.
The start of global warming can also mean extreme and erratic weather, and the evidence has been mounting up.
Knowing what we know now, how serious it may get, I don't want to see us looking back saying, oh, we could have done this, but now it's too late.
I think what concerns me most about global warming, I feel like we're just in a little experiment, and that we're just not leaving anything for the future generations.
A piece of film was supposed to have been cut to open this year's Festival of Festivals, but the organizers couldn't find any, so an old-fashioned ribbon was used instead.
This evening, the gala premiere belongs to a Canadian film, Ticket to Heaven. A number of limousines have pulled up with well-dressed people. Unfortunately, nobody seems to know who they are.
Despite the problems, after the film, it was party time, and there was everything you'd expect at a showbiz bash. Stars, booze, good-looking women, good-looking men, people dancing to the music of Martha and the Muffins, and more booze.
It's Warren Beatty night at the Festival of Festivals, where the spotlight shines on everyone.
The ushers at the theater had their hands full. It was their job to make sure the fans and the stars didn't collide. But when the big black Continental pulled up to the curb, there was no stopping the autograph hounds.
I'm very proud of myself from restraining myself from attempting to wrestle him to the ground, because it's exactly what I wanted to do.
This was opening night, a gala for the North American premiere of Joshua Then and Now. There were Klieg lights and limousines, but there were also some charming down-home touches. The star, James Woods, arrived with his proud parents, who came in from Rhode Island for the event.
Now, the oh-so-cool set have decreed Canada's little festival that could a must. That, of course, is Robin Williams, Claudia Schiffer.
It's the only film festival in the world where you see all of the most important films. You see a whole year come in advance.
As un-Canadian as it is to gloat, movie critic Roger Ebert says go right ahead.
Yeah, it's okay, Canada. It's okay. It's a real big, real good festival.
Reaching out to children and teaching valuable lessons. That's one of the big ideas behind Herstory in Black, a digital photo series that gathered the personal stories of 150 contemporary Black women. As Black History Month comes to a close, we've been shining a light on their achievements. Tonight, the CBC's Tashana Reid meets 3 artists passing on their pride and their values.
Akua Delfish and Onika Powell bonded over a love for dance.
I started dancing around the age of 7, and I started with Caribbean folk dancing. That's actually where I met Akua.
I started dancing from the age of 5. Even during the teenage years where a lot of youth typically want to do what's in or what's cool, I still had a love for folk. Onika and I have always been the best of friends. So then we kind of sat down several years ago and said, what next?
They decided to create a space of their own, D-Life Dance Company, teaching Caribbean, African, and hip-hop dance to youth in Toronto.
I need to see fists from everybody. It was teaching at competitive studios and seeing a lack of Caribbean children in the studios. For me, it's always been a dream to have a place where they could fit in. 5, 6, 7, and get low!
Traditionally, the African and Caribbean styles, you're a lot more rooted to the earth.
D-Life stands for dance. Let your feet explore.
Point to the toes.
But these kids are exploring their history too, one step at a time.
Cross and step, turn, step. Yeah? Safi, this looks familiar, right?
My dad's from Trinidad and my mom's from Jamaica, so they thought it would be good if I did a little bit of like the dancing from my culture as well, not just like competitive dancing.
If they understand the rich culture that they come from, it's important because then when they interact in society, they will interact with that confidence.
So you might be like this, you might be down here. Give me your flavor, yeah? With Caribbean dance styles, there's encouragement to be yourself. Your own personality is shining through your dance moves.
In the dance world, not everyone feels welcome. They encourage these kids to be comfortable in their own skin.
We had one of our dancers, I asked her why did she not sign up for the dance program at her school, and she said she walked into the audition and she looked around and no one looked like her.
Their students gain confidence with each new opportunity. A highlight, D-Life dancers sharing the stage with Trinidadian superstar Machel Montano at the Air Canada Centre last October.
We got to dance with them. So that was cool for them to be like,
oh my gosh, we're on the stage with Miss Onika and Miss Akua. I want them to see that, you know, go for it. Don't overthink it. Just go for it.
Climate change is coming for you.
Across the city, To Be Young Anita Africa is giving these young artists their own stage. Her story begins thousands of miles away in Jamaica.
Nice. Culturally in Jamaica, storytelling is very normalized. That kind of early exposure culturally, you know, really gave me, I feel like, the right to become a storyteller.
At 15, Debee and her family left Jamaica for Toronto. While she was embraced as a teen by her peers, she slowly started to feel isolated.
The sadness of having to assimilate, and that lasted for like a good 2 years, you know.
Debbie's mother enrolled her in an arts program.
That was a big turning point for me, being a part of that program and studying visual arts and studying theater.
In her late 20s, Debbie cemented her reputation as an artist.
Where are our elders?
Becoming an award-winning playwright, dub poet, and actor. After finding her voice, she's now helping others find theirs.
So the Water School would be the equivalent of a theater conservatory. I'm really proud of it. She sells seashells.
Anita Africa founded the Wata Theater in 2008. Her students rehearsing a dub opera.
Beautiful.
This program offers tuition-free training in performance and visual arts.
These young people who come into Water Theater are like, this is the only place that I've been able to get access to that does not prevent me from coming in the doors because I don't have enough money to pay $4,000, $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 per semester to get a professional arts education.
But cuts to arts funding have threatened the Wata Theater. For the last 2 years, Debbie has financed the program, spending thousands of dollars out of her own pocket and with a little help from the community. These women took separate paths that led them all here.
I'm really hoping that when my children and my children's children, when they look back at the work that we've done, they will be able to say, my ancestors were here and they made choices to ensure that I was born and given a fair chance to experience my humanity.
These photographs capture 150 women, making history now and leaving a legacy for the future. Tashana Reed, CBC News, Toronto.
Well, those are just some of the stories told by 150 women brought together by a grassroots initiative to coincide with Canada's 150th celebration. Her Story in Black is a digital photo series telling their stories and celebrating their accomplishments. And you can see it online. Just go to cbc.ca/herstoryinblack, all in one word. Coming up next, with shoppers feeling strapped for cash, some Canadian retail chains are booming. Popular U.S. retailer J.C. Penney announced today plans to close dozens of its stores. It will shutter up to 140 stores in the coming months, offering voluntary retirement for about 6,000 of its employees. J.C. Penney's rivals Macy's and Sears are also planning to close a few hundred stores. It comes as traditional storefront operations compete with online and discount retailers. And in many ways, Canada's retail landscape is similar to that in the U.S. They've both seen their share of casualties, but there are some Canadian stores that are thriving despite a weak economy. Their secret is an age-old, deep discounts. And as Diane Buckner reports, it still works like a charm.
You may have never set foot in this store or even seen one if you're one of the millions of inner-city Canadians. But for shoppers in the suburbs or small centers, discount chain Giant Tiger is a regular destination.
People have to watch their pennies.
They have really nice stuff. They're like cheap.
Price is awesome.
Bargain hunting has become a national pastime, a necessity for many, and that spells opportunity for discounters like Giant Tiger.
We're looking to expand across Canada nationally. We've got about 10 to 15 stores that we're planning every year for the next 3 to 5 years.
Founded in Ottawa 55 years ago, Giant Tiger sells groceries, fashion, hardware, and housewares in 200 suburban and rural locations. President Thomas Haig says he has yet to open stores in BC and Newfoundland, but they're coming.
Everybody loves a deal. You love a deal, I love a deal. So our buyers are constantly on the marketplace looking for a name brand deal that we can bring in at phenomenal savings to the consumer, and we pass that on to the consumer.
Meanwhile, Costco has plans for 7 new locations this year. And Dollarama is in major expansion mode. Already at 1,000 stores nationwide, it intends to add another 60 to 70.
At Christmas time, you're going to put gold balls on your Christmas tree. Doesn't matter if they're Ralph Lauren or the one you get from Dollarama, they both look the same.
This business professor says high levels of personal debt and the still sluggish Canadian economy are keeping consumers cautious.
We had a recession in 2008. But we haven't recovered from it. We're in the longest period of Canadian economic recovery. We bounced back faster from the Great Depression than we did from that recession. As such, consumers, I think, are more value conscious.
Retailers have been bargain hunting too, and they can get great deals on real estate. That's because when Target pulled out of Canada almost 2 years ago, it left space like this empty. Landlords all over the country have had to scramble to find new tenants.
And get the new signing in, it's going to be fantastic.
Thomas Haig says landlords are still calling with reduced rents, even offering to reconfigure stores to suit Giant Tiger's somewhat smaller size.
For us, they're very good deals. They meet our financial model, and so therefore we're happy with that deal.
But what kind of a discount would you be getting over what, say, the previous tenant paid?
I can't tell that information. We're a private company. Some information we don't give up.
But he will say the right rent means savings can be passed on to consumers.
How have you been? We had a very good price, very low, affordable for the middle class people, right?
Wages aren't raising like they used to be, and jobs are not available to everyone every now and then, you know.
Looks like a weak economy can be good news when you're in the bargain business. Diane Buckner, CBC News, Barrie, Ontario.
We'll be right back with a quick sports lesson. Sometimes it's best to leave your shoelace untied.
Reform's Chief of Policy, Steve Harper, previews a major theme of the weekend.
Reformers want a strong country built by those who want in, not by those who want out.
I guess in terms of the results in Calgary West tonight, there's only one thing I can say, along the lines of what Don Cherry always says, and that's
48,561, which is 55.04%.
This country needs a party dedicated not to worshiping or taking advantage of the system, but to reforming the system in this country to better serve the interests of ordinary, hard-working, common-sense Canadians.
Good evening. Stephen Harper and Peter MacKay were all smiles and handshakes today
as they took the wraps off their historic deal to merge the Progressive Conservatives and the Canadian Alliance.
This division of Conservatives is ending. Our swords will henceforth be pointed at the Liberals, not at each other.
In the end, the campaign's frontrunner, the former leader of the Canadian Alliance, won the leadership on the first round of voting, denying Belinda Stronach and Tony Clement a second round to try to overtake him.
The tired, old, and corrupt Liberal Party is right now cornered like an angry rat.
We are saying it is going to be a Conservative minority government. You're looking at the 22nd Prime Minister of Canada.
Friends, I have never been so proud of our great country, and I am honored and overwhelmed to be asked to lead it.
Most hours have 60 minutes. This hour has 7 days. Tonight, Ralph Nader charges the Detroit car companies with running risks that can't hurt them, but do hurt us.
I could give an example of the Buick Roadmaster in 1953. The one with power brakes came onto the market, many thousands of them, with a defective braking system. Now,
you mean in the 53 Buick Roadmaster,
with power
a driver
brakes
would literally go from normal brakes to no brakes like that?
Right, that's right. This is documented in court records, which is very interesting. It shows you that the only way we find out about these things is through the cumbrous process of the judicial system. So what you want to do is make an overwhelming systematic case to overcome the resistance of industry. The stronger a case you make, the more scientists you have working on the project on an independent, objective basis, the more overpowering the forces of humane automotive technology will be.
X Company, The Final Mission, Wednesdays at 9 on CBC.
The major issue, they just cannot string together consistent minutes. As Deary tried to tie her shoe and gave the ball away. Parker then will lay it in, and Ashley Deary makes the ill-advised decision.
Now tying your shoe right in the middle of a NCAA game, maybe not the best strategy. This Northwestern player found that out last night during a game against Rutgers. Despite coming undone, her team went on to win by 22 points, putting a perfect bow on the victory. That's the National for this Friday night. For news at any hour, you can always go to our website, cbcnews.ca. I'm Mark Kelly. Have a great weekend. Thanks for watching.